Welcome to Kentucky.
The birthplace of Abraham Lincoln and built on the largest cave system in the known world. The home of Daniel Boone, Hunter S. Thompson, horse racing, and bourbon.
But when the hour grows late, the bluegrass state becomes the breeding ground for realms beyond those familiar to the human race. In the east, ghosts, spirits, and ethereal entities roam the hills and hollers.
In the north, Mothman beats his wings along the banks of the Ohio River.
To the west, small green creatures stalk farmhouses and disappear without a trace when shot.
While in the south, the energy of the Veiled Witch is palpable just over the border. Joining with us as we investigate just what goes wrong in the bluegrass night.
And ask the question, how many coincidences are too many? There's no need to check the clock.
There's no need to check the clock. Time is an illusion.
Time is an illusion.
And it's midnight.
It's midnight. In Kentucky.
In Kentucky.
In Kentucky. In Kentucky. In Kentucky. In Kentucky.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is the Midnight Hour once again for Midnight in Kentucky. I'm Ben.
I'm Stephen.
If you would, please, if you like the show and enjoy what we're doing, please leave us ratings and reviews on iTunes, on the website. Those ratings and reviews help us get followers, help us attract sponsors, and generally just help us get more information and more bluegrass weirdness out to you guys. So please, ratings and reviews help us out so much. In addition, if you would, and if you want more of our Kentucky strangeness, follow us on social media. We are active on Facebook,
Twitter,
YouTube,
MidnightKentucky.com.
And we just launched the RLT Ransom Letter Publishing TeePublic, where you can find Midnight in Kentucky t-shirts, tote bags, notebooks, all kinds of Midnight in Kentucky merch, and where eventually, once we get more things going, you will be able to find all kinds of Ransom Letter Publishing merchandise from bands, our other podcasts. With the whole pandemic, we're still working from home and trying to get new shows up and new music out to you guys. So look forward to that. And jump on the TeePublic. Buy a t-shirt if you can. We got some cool stuff over there. We've got Kentucky's Werewolf Problem t-shirt. We've got the tagline. Got all kinds of different stuff. So check that out if you're in the market for some Midnight in Kentucky merch. Tonight, of course, Stephen and I are quarantined in our separate homes, and we're doing this through Zoom. So we're doing something a little bit different. Generally, Stephen and I are sitting face-to-face and interacting, but this is our first show that we've done like this. So we are discussing a case that we have discussed before, the UFO encounter of James Bunch. Tell us a little bit about what we've learned on this case so far, if you would.
Right. Well, back in February of 2016, James called into the show Third Phase of the Moon, and he reported that while he was a sheriff's deputy on duty one really early morning hours of a August, morning, that he got a call from dispatch that there was a reported possible structure or field fire that a truck driver spotted from the parkway on the Pulaski-Russell County line. James was dispatched and went out there. And then, once they got out there, we discussed it in our episode, a few episodes back, where they spotted this UFO over this house and, and kind of had this encounter.
Right. And in conjunction with that, we had other people that we've talked to in the past on the air and off the air talk about this particular area where we thought that James may have saw this UFO that he more or less confirms in this interview.
Exactly. And the area is kind of the same area we discussed a lot of the strange light sightings, and in the general area itself has had a lot of strange, activity with this for several years, and this is even dating back to when James reported his in 2005, and it's in that part of Russell County on the Russell-Pulaski County line, near the new 910 Cumberland Parkway interchange. And, it kind of corresponds with a lot of stuff we've discussed for several years.
Right, exactly. Some of these things that we discussed with Daniel Wilson on our interview with Daniel Wilson earlier this year.
Exactly, and that kind of draws us back to the light sightings up in that area, and even if they're drones, it kind of shines a whole new light onto maybe what those drones are in that area for, and maybe what they're probing for.
Sure, absolutely. And I wrote an article a while back, I think it was in October of last year, about the drones and how these drones may be the new form of black helicopters, which we're seeing, are still seen with UFO sightings, in conjunction with UFO sightings, and how these drones may be a more technologically advanced form of that. Exactly.
And that the thing is, multiple people has reported these drones in this area for, at least the past couple of years, if not longer. And
then before that, it was UFOs.
Exactly, in the same area. So it kind of makes you wonder, what exactly, are they doing in that area? And they're most definitely, in my opinion, they're connected.
Right.
But
right.
It definitely warrants more investigation. And even after speaking to James, on this interview, it kind of makes you, think definitely we need to look into this more.
Absolutely. And it makes me wonder even if, of course, doing a show in Kentucky, we see the phenomena isolated to certain places. And, when you tend to zoom out, you realize that this phenomena is happening all over. But it makes me wonder, this corridor, this Eli corridor, where a lot of these phenomena that we discuss, and we'll be discussing tonight with James, where this has happened, is directly coming down the line from Somerset, where, in the past few episodes, we've talked about the Somerset connection with the Hellier investigation. And it makes you wonder if all of these things aren't connected as one unified thing, or if it's not all the same thing and all the same happening in this area, being so close to each other.
You're exactly right, Ben, and that's the thing, when we started looking into this about a year ago, we went back and, probing for the areas of where this is at, even into parts of Pulaski County. And, once we started looking at, the aspects of things we discussed in the Somerset connection, it ties back to people who live in that area.
Right, exactly. Well, earlier, I guess it was about a month ago, James actually messaged the Midnight in Kentucky Facebook page with another story that was not this UFO story. And we talk about that on this call too. I'll save that story to let James tell it. But when he messaged, I immediately messaged back and sent him the episode we had done on him earlier this year, or I'm sorry, in summer of last year. And he listened to it, and I asked him if he would do the show, and he was, he didn't want to at first. He was kind of nervous about talking about these things, but eventually, he agreed that he wanted this story on record. He wanted all these stories on record, and he wanted to try and, to present this to people to find out if other people had seen these things and other people had experienced these things. So, we're just really excited to have him. It was a full circle moment for you and I, just because, it was back very early in this podcast that somebody told us that we needed to look into this, and that this would be a case that, we could potentially break to a much larger audience than had already heard about it.
Yeah, and I remember back when you first sent me the link to the YouTube video of Third Faces Moon, I listened to it. I was like, instantly thinking, yeah, this is definitely something we need to look into, and here we are a couple years down the road, and, and we're still kind of following the trail and talking to the actual witness of this event.
Right. And I think the more that we dig, the more that, we put out on this event, I think the more that is going to come our way. I don't think this interview is going to be the last of what we hear from this entire thing.
No, definitely not. And I know both of us have taken stringent notes of both calls and discussed this in detail. And, it's most likely, we will do a follow-up episode in the future on the subject.
Absolutely. And James even said, I think at the end of the call, we even talked a little bit with James about doing a follow-up episode. I would love to get him and Daniel Wilson just in a roundtable discussion on what's going on with all this, because I think both of them talking together and both of them talking about their different experiences could really tie some things together about where we are and about what's happening in our area.
I think so, and that's a great idea, and our listeners it would be valuable for them to hear both of them together in a roundtable environment discussing things that go on here in, the 37th parallel, and even James brings that up, I think, on the call. Yeah,
he does bring up the 37th parallel, and that's a very good point. I mean, we sit right on it. Everything that's happening here, seems to be happening all around this 37th parallel and all up above it and below it. And I don't know. I thought it was interesting that he brought that up as well. And, that's something you and I have been looking into for the better part of a year to a year and a half. And, we sit right on it.
Right. And that just even ties into, things we discussed in our Hillier episodes and the Somerset Connection episodes, that there's just a lot of strangeness that runs through this area, especially, that is possibly linked to the 37th parallel and other phenomenon that goes on across it.
Right. Absolutely. Well, again, we want to deeply thank James for speaking with us, for taking the time to talk with us about his various experiences. There's a little bit of audio clicks and pops in this, so just be aware of those. Don't know if somebody was listening in, what was going on there, but those are in there. They're not distracting or anything. Just wanted to warn you guys. And without further ado, we present Midnight in Kentucky in conversation with James Bunch. Thank you guys so much for listening. We'll be right back. ladies and gentlemen, we are here tonight. We are quarantined in our safe areas tonight with Mr. James Bunch. We have discussed one of James's experiences on the show before at the beginning of this season. James?
I'm happy to be here. I was hesitant about coming on the show, but, I thought about it, and the truth is the truth, and it needs to be spoken out, so that's why I'm here.
Absolutely, absolutely. And, just before we get into things, I know that we talked a little bit over Facebook back and forth over the past couple of weeks, and I had told you that this experience that we had talked about on the show before, this experience with this UFO here in central Kentucky, is to me, akin to some of the major cases in ufology. It's to me, you have been witness to one of the major events here in Kentucky and in ufology in general, and I think the story needs to get better well known. I think more people need to know about this story. So we are delighted to have you here to talk about that.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. And also, I know the group of people that usually will tune into the show here, they usually don't tend to ridicule people and, laugh at them and all that. I mean, just like you are here there listening right now, I'm you, basically, right now listening, because I was a normal person. I just happened to be in the right place or the wrong place at the wrong time and do what I saw, and I'm here to discuss that. So, yeah, go ahead.
Absolutely, absolutely. What, the right place at the right time, or the wrong place at the wrong time, right?
yeah, one of the two. Yeah.
Me and Stephen first came about you and about your experiences in an odd way. I had a friend who had actually listened the first time you had called into Third Phase of the Moon.
Yes.
And he had alerted me to that, and he said, you need to listen to this episode. You need to hear this. This is huge, and it happened right here in our backyard. I'm sure you've told that story a couple times. I know you told it on there, but if you wouldn't mind, would you just kind of walk us through that story one more time?
Okay, yeah, I know what you're talking about. I live in Russell County, Kentucky, South Central Kentucky. And I was a sheriff's deputy. I sworn in. Dad turned 21, October the 31st of 2001, and was a deputy in Russell County till 2007. But on in the summer, I think it was May of 2005, I had gotten a call to dispatch of, we live through, our county, we have a major parkway, the Cumberland Parkway, that goes right through the center of the county, and we had gotten a call through dispatch of a truck driver, I think it was around 2:30 a.m., of a fire, either a structure fire or a field fire, toward the Pulaski County line in the Gospel Ridge community. So that it could be seen from the parkway. So I went out there with a friend of mine who was riding with me at the time and who had aspired to be a sheriff's deputy, who had got hired later. There's now a contractor for the government in security over in the Middle East. And he kind of, I guess, wants to be left out of it. But yes, regardless, I got there in about 5 minutes, and I don't even know where to start. Let me think. Okay, let me relax here. All right.
Oh, absolutely. Take your time, man.
You have to imagine. I mean, I'm your regular guy, and all of a sudden get a call of a house fire. So I didn't think a UFO. Obviously I thought house fire. Well, I go out there and during the summertime. I mean, right now the trees are all dead, basically still starting to bloom, but still.
Right.
But during the summer, you see this golden glow from the distance, and sort of a reddish golden glow, maybe a little bit of a tinge of orange, and keep getting closer, and all of a sudden, I don't know I'll just tell you how it was. Me and him pull up, and we look, and we all of a sudden realize there's no house fire, no field fire. This is something, amazing, And right there we are in this guy's little private driveway. We're looking up, and there's this huge, 60-yard around. I don't know how to really describe the size, but it's huge. Looked like an upside-down acorn. Not exactly, but close. It was just glowing of goldish, orange, reddish colors. And if you look really close, something I didn't say on third phase is, you know, I also noticed as I was looking, which seemed like forever, like 1 second seemed like 1 hour when you're looking at this.
Right.
You know, you're in shock.
Right.
You're frozen. You're scared. I don't care to say, yeah, I was scared, you know. I mean,
absolutely.
If anyone out there listening right now thinks they can see something from another world and not be the least bit scared, well, congrats to you. But me as deputy sheriff, who had been on all sorts of calls, been shot at, been stabbed, yes, I was scared to death. You know, I gotta tell you.
Absolutely.
I was froze.
Absolutely.
Solid. And so you would be too, I promise. So
absolutely. Seeing anything like that, seeing something that is beyond your reality as much as that,
yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine anybody that would be, you know, totally fine with walking up to it or even pulling up on that.
Yeah, I mean, you're not gonna walk up to the thing like, dispatch, it's just a UFO. Everything's cool. We're gonna get out of here.
Yeah,
you know,
it's all good.
It's not like that. The first thing we thought, well, first, thank God I had somebody riding with me because I said, hey, do you see what I see? And he said, yes. What is that? I'll leave out the curse words, but. Yeah, what is that? And I'm like, it's a effing UFO. I said, what is this? I said, what's going on? Get out of here, you know. And I was ready to get out of there. He said, no. He gets out of the car first and starts standing there, you know, looking up at it. And then I get out, I put my hand on my gun. Sort of a natural reaction to a traffic stop normally. But on this call, you know, I'm scared. I'm not going to lie. And I'm looking up, and there's a big, gigantic ship that I know it's not going to land in the Russell County Airport anytime soon, you know. And I know it's not of this world. I know. I mean, you don't have to sit there and think about it. I mean, you know that this is not of this world, and there goes all your the reality that you've just known is shattered from that moment forward.
And
I mean,
absolutely.
When you see something like this, you know.
You're right. And I know that you said with the interviewer on third phase, he asked you if it was a star. And you kind of laughed at him, and you were like, "No, this was no star."
No.
and
no.
I mean, that just shows you how close you were to this thing to actually see what this was, or you know, what you perceive it to be. You know.
Well, I mean, imagine going to, you know, living in Kentucky here. Go to the nearest wood line, look at the top of the trees. Imagine a ship right there. If you're that close, you're going to know what it is. You know, you're going to know it's not of this world. You're going to know it's not a star. It's not a helicopter. All that, you know.
Absolutely. So
yeah.
You're standing there with your hand on your gun. Your partner gets out of the car first. What happens after that?
Well, me and him didn't say anything to each other from that point forward. I just had my hand on my gun, and all I remember is I was thinking in my head, this is not real. I'm going to wake up. I'm going to wake up. I'm going to wake up. That's why I said it's like a dream-like state, you know, in third phase. But it was real can be as I'm talking to you right now. But, you know, during that time, it was like time stood still, you know, and this is not real. This is ridiculous. It's crazy. But I'm looking at it right now. Am I crazy? Is he crazy? He sees it. You know, that sort of thing, you know. And, well, I'll just go ahead and tell you that from there, all of a sudden, the craft, it just shot up all of a sudden from where it was at above the treetops to about where your average airliner would fly about 30 to 50,000 feet, I'm going to guess, you know, just a guesstimate. And it stopped on a dime. And that happened in about 6 seconds. And then it stopped on a dime, and it stood still for about 6 more seconds, and then it shot off. It sort of like turned, the craft turned a little bit to like on its side, and then it shot off into a clear sky, clear night sky, to out of sight in about 6 more seconds. Like, I mean, I've never seen speeds like that in my life. I mean, it's unworldly, obviously, you know, just out of sight, blink, you know. It's not from this world. What I saw is not from this world, and I'll say it on my deathbed. That's all I can say.
Sure. You definitely knew it wasn't an airplane or a jet or anything.
No, definitely not.
Right.
Yeah. Definitely not.
So after this thing zooms off, after this thing leaves, what happened there with you and your partner? What was the exchange? What happened after you watched this thing leave?
Well, I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and talked to him just yesterday, and back on the show. But anyway, we and him was thinking, right after it zoomed off, we just looked at each other, and we got back in the car. We didn't say a word, and I backed up and pulled out. We still didn't say anything, and I know what was going through my mind was, is this really happening? WTF? What the, is going on?
Sure.
And I thought, I need to call into dispatch, and tell her there's no fire here. Cancel the fire department. Well, I went ahead and called in and said there's no fire. But I didn't say there was a UFO that just took off, dispatch. I'm crazy as hell here. I didn't say that. But, that was that. And then we left, and going down the road, he was like, did that really happen? And I was like, well, yeah, I saw it and you saw it. And I mean, yeah. I don't know. I said, we was just in shock,
Sure.
But the whole ride back, and he wanted me to take him on home. Normally, he would get out of the car around 6 a.m. when I got off work, but he was ready to go home then. After that, he said, take me home,
Right. He was done.
Yeah. Shift ended.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because after that, I don't believe I got another call that night. It was pretty quiet, but after that, I mean, that was it,
Sure. I know that you mentioned, you and him kind of, after this event had happened, you kind of, collected yourselves and kind of decided, what you were going to say, if anything, to the sheriff. And Stephen and I are both Russell County residents, so, we're familiar with the sheriff at the time, and we both kind of agreed that we probably wouldn't have said anything either. So
yeah, I mean, Sheriff Larry Bennett. He was, I believe, the record holder as far as the sheriff is. As far as the most consecutive years in a row, as far as being sheriff, I think he is the most consecutive sheriff in North County or in Kentucky history. And yeah, he's no nonsense at all, and I know that, and I knew that, and I knew right then and there I was never going to say a word to him about that. And if he ever hears about it, it'll be through this show, because I'm still not going to tell him. I mean, that's just how it is,
Absolutely. As odd as it is, and it's not really that odd for Russell County, I'm somehow distantly related to Larry Bennett through some way. So, we're kind of in the same boat. If he hears about it.
Yeah.
But, okay, so you guys kind of collected yourselves and decided, against telling the sheriff. Let me ask you this, and this is a question I meant to ask you through Facebook Messenger, but it totally slipped my mind at the time when we were talking. Was there any time discrepancies? I know you mentioned that dreamlike state and the fact that there were no insects or no, natural sounds when you see this thing. But was there any missing time, or was there any, did you guys notice anything like that?
Well, I'm glad that you brought that up, because actually, from the time we got there to the time that we left was about 30 minutes, according to dispatch. But honestly, it seemed like about 2 or 3 minutes total to me in real time, if I'm not counting for every second seeming like an hour.
Right.
I don't know how to explain it to you. It's really weird. It don't seem like 30 minutes had went by. It seems like just, the only time we've been, talking right now had went by total.
Sure.
But really, when I called in, and they always call back, the time, and it was like 36 or 7 minutes, later after I got to the scene. And it didn't seem like that long at all. But then again, no, I don't believe I was abducted, nothing like that. It's really weird. I don't know how to explain it. Time just seemed like it didn't exist. That's all I can say.
Absolutely. And Stephen and I have both, we've heard of similar things through many cases. And you mentioned at the top of the show when you were telling your story that every moment seemed like it drug out forever, and that you kind of lost your sense of time while you were looking at this thing.
Yeah, it seemed like time drug on. Like every second was like 10 minutes each, like forever, But I have no memories of, any abduction or anything like that. I just remember, sitting outside the car, had my hand on my gun, kept staring at the thing, seemed like all eternity, for years. And it just shot up, and that was that, and we left, But it did not seem like the 38 minutes that it was.
Right.
It seemed like about 5 minutes, but it was 38 minutes, so that's what's so weird about the time distortion.
Right. Absolutely. And that's I knew I wanted to ask you about that because, there are so many cases of that missing time, and I felt like in something as close proximity as you were to it, that, you would have had to have had some time discrepancy like that. So absolutely, that is very interesting.
Well, 38 minutes, that's how long it was. 'Cause I checked. I was curious, about a month later, I went down and checked, and 38 minutes was how long from the time I was here to the time I was leaving, and it seemed like 5 minutes there at the scene. But 38 minutes, it did not seem like that at all. But then again, I don't have any dreams or any visions of abduction, anything like that either, so I don't know what to say.
Well, that kind of brings me to my next question, and I was going to actually ask this at the end of the show, but since we're here now, I'll go ahead and ask you. If something did happen to you in that space of time, would you want to be hypnotized and find out about it, or do you feel like you would rather leave that where it's at and just not know?
No, I'm a skeptic. You're going to hear a story here soon about what we talked about, and you'll think I'm crazy, but
sure,
you don't already think I'm crazy, but I'm a skeptic. I don't believe anything unless I have proof, So yeah, I'd be up for hypnotization, I'd be up to be hypnotized. Yeah, sure.
Absolutely. So you would, so even though, this situation frightened you, and even though, you were in that situation that you felt like you would never see anything like this in your life, you would still want to know what happened further if something did.
Yeah, I would. I like to know the bottom of the truth. I like to know the truth of what's going on in the reality of the world, So, yeah, I would like to know.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I know that after things kind of wound down on that particular shift and after that evening, you actually took the extra step and went back to the house that following day, correct?
Yeah, I did, because I was off the next day, and I woke up, and I still remembered, everything from that night. And I thought to myself,
sure,
I've got to go out there and, speak to the homeowner and see if they saw anything. So I went out there on my own. I wasn't in a police car. I was in my own personal SUV. And
sure,
went out there on my own time, knocked on the door, this older man. He looked like he might have been about in his mid-60s, upper 60s. And I said, I had to come out here last night on a call of a house fire or a field fire. I said, do you know anything about last night? Was you awake? He said, yeah. He said, I know what you're here for. And I said, oh, really? Yeah. He said, wasn't the first time, won't be the last. And he said, I'll see you later, and shut the door. And he's like a odd character at the same time,
Interesting. Yeah, sure.
I don't even know if he's still alive right now, to be honest.
Well, that's what I was about to ask you. I was about to ask you if you knew if the homeowner was still there or if you had spoken to him since.
No, but the tags on his car in the driveway were from Arizona. But I didn't I had them ran, but then they came back to him his name. But that's in dispatch, and that's years ago, and I don't know if I could even dig that back up or not now.
Sure.
But so I ran the tags to learn his address and to go back down who he was.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Out of my own curiosity.
So let me ask you this. I know that we had kind of talked about the location a little bit before, it being on the Pulaski border here. Do you think he was a Kentucky resident, a Pulaski resident, or do you think he may have been from Arizona and may have come here for whatever reason?
Well, since I'm all about the truth, all I believe is it was during the summer. This was like a vacation home, and,
sure,
with tags from Arizona. I don't think it was a Kentucky regular. I don't think he just moved here to retire. I believe it's a vacation home, and that's close to the area where vacation homes are, close to the lake here. So, yeah, I believe he was not from here.
Absolutely. Which, kind of makes that statement all that more interesting. It won't be the first time. It won't be the last. Do you think these things may come to him? What do you think about that statement? What do you think about this guy's overall character as a police, as an investigator? What did you think about it?
Well, let's go ahead and give you. I see this much. His last name was Williams, and he was out of Sedona, Arizona. So wherever that's at, I've never been out there, but that's where his tags came back to. And Williams was his last name, and that's all I remember, really.
Interesting. So, I know that you kind of mentioned on Third Phase of the Moon that you thought you may have interrupted an abduction or something like that. What exactly do you think happened to you guys out there? I mean, your best speculation. I know that you can't say absolutely for sure, but what do you think happened out there?
Well, looking back, I think that obviously it was happening before the truck driver came along and, made the call. So it took me about 6 minutes to get there. So I'm guessing, I think that whatever had happened had already happened, and they were in the final stages when I got there, and then they left, That's why I believe I was not abducted,
Right. That makes sense, and it makes sense that, it's my personal belief that these things, when we encounter them, are so far out of our reality that maybe they mess with their sequence of time, and maybe you guys were just caught in that odd dream-like state of reality that these things seem to project, because you talked about that as well. You talked about it being dreamlike and no sound from local wildlife and things like that.
Oh, yeah. Important note I want to input here is me and him both noticed later that there were no, normally in the middle of July, let's say, insects, loudest you can hear them, insects, in the woods. Well, it was absolutely silent. You could have literally heard a pin drop and hit the ground during that whole time. You could have heard a pin drop. That's the first. There was no wind blowing. Before that, there was all night long. During that encounter, nothing. Dead silent, like we were in our own bubble almost.
Right. And that's something else that a lot of UFO witnesses talk about, that bubble of time and space that they seem to be in when they're witnessing something like this.
Yeah, it was really odd. I don't know how to explain it,
Sure.
But, it was just really odd.
Absolutely.
Well, one thing I was kind of wondering is, when this was going on, was there any other residents around when this was going on, like other people could see this, if there was like something that continually happened? No,
I mean, you have to remember it's about 2:30 or 3 a.m., in the morning. I mean, nothing. There's nobody out during that time of day, or time of night, rather. And anyway, I would have never. I'm lucky. I don't know if I'm lucky or unlucky. The truck driver saw it, but still saw it. So yeah, I'm lucky. I'm lucky to saw it, honestly. But on top of that, I mean, even if there was a neighbor, there was no neighbors very close. Maybe about a half mile away was the closest neighbor, but I believe that was a vacation home, and I don't think nobody was home there at the time either. It was more early in the summer.
Right. Yeah, so it's kind of like, of course, a lot of people who don't live in Russell County, we have a lake here. A lot of it's communities. There is a lot of lake homes that are down in that area, in Russell and Pulaski counties. I'm there. It's very interesting, though, that, I just kind of wonder about the gentleman that lived there or was, vacationing there, if this was something that was a common occurrence to him, which, in my opinion, his statement there kind of sounds like, it is something that continually happens to him.
Well, I mean, honestly, to me, it seems like something that followed him here, because I don't know of any other sighting or any other report, before or since then, that man, from that area, the UFO. I mean, if it happened, I mean, no one reported to dispatch just like me, no one wanted to say anything for a while. Fear of the job being lost, being called a nut or whatever. So, but either way, no. I honestly, I can't answer that. I don't know. It's right before the big tourism. It was right before mainly Ohioans started bringing the boats down, to be honest. Right around in May.
Right.
Yeah.
So I guess the proximity of the location, it's, obviously truck drivers seen it from the parkway, so it has to be pretty close within the parkway. And there, as you're saying, what we call the Gosser Ridge community, which, is parallel to...
Okay, I'll pinpoint it closer to you. Maybe you'll understand where this is at. Do you know when you're coming from Somerset going toward Russell County, and you look to your left, and it's like a valley, and it's a real pretty valley to your left and right, for that matter. There's no creek there, no water, but there's a nice-looking valley on the parkway. Well, to you, it'd be to your left on that valley, be toward the Jabez area of Russell County, and that's the area it was in.
Okay, yeah, I pretty much know what you're talking about, yeah.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, James, I know you mentioned back there when you answered that first question, you said, that you do feel lucky to have seen this thing. And that was the question I had on down the line. If you could go back and decide whether, you had this experience or not, it seems like you would decide to have it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would relive it over, knowing what I know now, especially, I'd love to relive it over. I know I'd be scared to death. I'm not going to lie and say I'm the bravest, baddest person on earth. Yeah, I'd be scared to death, but I'd love to see it again, And on top of that, I've heard about, why didn't you take a picture? Why didn't you record it? Well, I'll tell you, we did not have, in 2005, dash cams in Russell County at the time. We didn't have those. I had a Polaroid camera in my trunk for taking pictures of scenes of death or a death at an accident on the road or whatnot,
Ongoing investigation, yeah.
Yeah. But other than that, we didn't have a dash cam. We didn't have a cell phone. We didn't have iPhone 10, so
right.
My phone was a flip phone at the time, I believe, and no camera. So,
sure.
If it's been like right now, I believe maybe I might have thought to have whipped the phone out and took a picture. I'm so used to it, but back then, no.
There was no precedent for that at all. We didn't live back like that back then. There was no flipping it out.
No, it's different.
For a few seconds.
Yeah, it was different. You're not used to flipping your phone out, back in 2005. No.
Absolutely. And on top of that, you talk about, and this was something I wanted to ask you about. You talk about that frozen feeling, and a lot of witnesses just talk about that feeling that they just can't move. Do you think that was caused by something, or do you think that was just because you were so frozen in terror of the thing?
To be honest, and to be completely honest, I was scared. I knew what that felt like going there. When I first saw the ship, I felt that fear. But then when I got up there and got out and was standing outside, it's like another layer came upon us of don't move, just you're froze solid, don't move. But before that, yeah, I think I could have pulled the gun and shot the thing, but it wouldn't have been a good idea,
Sure, absolutely. And
that was going. Well, I'm sorry. That was going through my head the whole time. Shoot it. Don't shoot. You're crazy if you shoot the thing, What's the bullet going to do to this? It's going to kill you. Get out of here. I was thinking, get the hell out of here was my main objective, to be honest.
Absolutely. But, I'm an avid concealed carry, so I know that feeling of, you reach for your gun first thing when something like that has happened. Even if you think your life's going to be in danger there. I thought my life was in danger, So I put my hand on my gun, and obviously, you're not going to wake up tomorrow with a big UFO hovering over your house. I can about promise you. If you do, you got a gun on your hip. You want to put your hand on your gun. I don't care who you are, or how brave you are. But yeah. Well, that kind of answers all my questions. Stephen, do you have anything else?
No, I don't have anything else. Any other questions? That was good.
Now, I don't know if you want to discuss. Go ahead.
No, yeah, absolutely. I think I know where you were going. When we first come into correspondence, you had actually messaged me with a different encounter that you had when you were younger. Is that right?
Yes. I'll tell it from start to finish here. I was 15 years old. This happened in about the end of the summer, early fall of 1995. I live in the city limit, at the time, I lived in the city limits of Russell Springs, Kentucky, and I don't know if any of you know where Premier Drug is right now currently, but that building, about 15 feet behind the building is where what I'm about to tell you takes place at. So me and a friend of mine, my best friend in school, we had walked down to his dad's one afternoon, at school, excuse me, and it's down the end of Main Street. And after that, we, talked. We're walking back. It's got dark by then, and we're walking back toward my house, and me and him both just had to burst. We was like dying to pee, We just burst to pee, So anyway, I said, let's cut back through here behind what was then called Johnny's Family Center. It's a little grocery store. Well, either way, we walked back behind there, and like I'm facing Main Street, or the direction of Main Street, and looking down, and most guys who are listening to this can kind of imagine themselves looking down, taking a pee, their buddy beside them, with their back turned to the right side, peeing that direction. I'm looking down, and I start to look up, and I look straight in front of me, it's pitch black dark, and I'm like, what's going on? Lights went out. I start to look up to the stars, and there's no stars, and I'm met by the glow of the light of, like a glow reflection of light behind me from teeth of this beast, like a wolf creature. And the thing's about 10 foot tall, 9, 10 foot tall. I swear to God on my life, like it has this greenish, yellowish glowing eyes looking down at me, and I'm just froze solid. I mean, UFO was nothing compared to this. I mean, this scared me to death. I mean, I was really frozen solid in fear in this one. And anyway, I said Jacob was his name, and I have the corner of my mouth said, Jacob, turn around. He turns around, he's still peeing. It's funny because he's holding, I remember out of the corner of my eye, he's holding himself, peeing, I remember, it's funny now, but out the corner of my eye, I remember looking at his eyes, and his eyes get bigger around his golf balls, he just looks up. I see his eyes, just his pupils go upward, and he sees, and I see him see the face, and I look back at the face, and I'm like froze there, I'm like, I whisper, what are we going to do, and before he could say anything, the thing just hunched down and just bolted off, and it took off, and it's like uneven field, and when it took off, like, if you picture, like, 2 football fields, for example, and, something traveling that distance in an uneven land, but going straight, as if there was no land at all, just like it's flying. This thing was not flying. It was just going straight. No wings, nothing like that. And covered that 200 yards in about, 5 seconds. Just amazing. And it hit a big, thick fence row, thick woodland, and barbed wire, and thorns. And, I'm skipping ahead of myself, but after it darted off, we bolted to my house, which is about a half mile away. We burst through my door. We grabbed my gun, started loading them and everything, thought about calling police, and told my mom and dad what was going on, and, they said, they'll never believe you, don't call them, just, wait, and sure. They believed it. They believed what we saw. I mean, they knew there was no joke about it. They knew that, they saw the fear in our eyes, So
right.
They knew we saw what we saw.
They at least knew that you saw something.
Yeah, they knew that we was not joking at all from the very beginning. And so that was on a Friday night, I remember, and the next day, Saturday morning, we said to ourselves, during daybreak, we're going to walk up there with these, I had a 12-gauge shotgun, 12-gauge pump. He had a 22, so we're going to go back up there. We're going to search the fence row for hair and all that, which we did, and nothing, no disturbance, nothing in sight, just like nothing had happened, So, that was that.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you still talk to Jacob? I know that you still talk to, well, have you guys talked about this experience in the past little bit?
Yeah, he works here at a local, have you ever heard of Stevens Pipe and Steel?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Worked there for a little bit myself.
Yeah, he's worked there for about 10 years, and I live real close, and, I see him about once or twice a week. Yeah, we talk about it, yeah.
Okay. Well, what does he say about this? I mean, I'm sure he's still just as in shock as you that this happened to you guys.
Yeah, I mean, he'll tell you the same thing I've told you. I mean, just to prove that I was not lying to people before, when I'd call up, out of the blue, at random, I'd say, well, if you don't remember me, or if you don't believe me, then here, I would dial his number and hit, the speakerphone, and I'd say, "Hey, Jacob, I got somebody here. Tell them what we saw that one time." And that's all I'd say, and he'd tell me in detail exactly what I told you.
Right, yeah. And that's interesting. Just to know that you guys it's because I know with a lot of experiences like this, and you see them by yourself, or you see them with somebody that you're no longer talk to, or that you drifted apart from. It can be you can almost question yourself to the point that you're like, no, that I don't know if I actually saw that. But when there's somebody else to remind you, no, man, we saw that. That happened to us. It's a whole different thing.
Yeah, I mean, if you hadn't heard, if I saw both things alone, been by myself, you wouldn't be hearing this right now because I'd never called in. I've never said a word. Honestly, I'd have kept quiet.
Right.
But, it's crazy. So, I know it is. But,
well,
it's true.
It is. It's crazy in the sense of the word that, it's something far beyond our understanding of what is happening on our planet or in our reality. But, it's not crazy in the sense that me and Stephen and, hundreds of other researchers that are far better than us have collected stories like that for years. So, it's not crazy in the fact that it's happening. Something's happening. Something is being seen out there, whether it be UFOs or these creatures. Or let me ask you this. What do you think that this creature was? What, if you had to, speculating, what do you think you saw out there?
Well, if you'd asked me, that morning, I'd said a werewolf. It's crazy as it sounds, but now I'm going to say I think it's some sort of interdimensional creature because I don't believe that anything we done to it, if I'd have swung at it or tried to reach it or grab it, I don't think that I would have touched it. I believe it was not affected by our reality because when it took off, it, did not go up and down with the grooves of the Earth's surface. Well, but at the same time, it had the reflection of the light and the saliva on its long fangs and teeth when I looked at it of the background to me, so I don't know what to believe, really.
Right. And, we hear about experiences like that a lot of, especially in Kentucky. We have a recurring joke. It's actually on our T-shirts on our website. Kentucky has a huge werewolf problem. And we do. It seems like every day we're getting new reports of things just like you described.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I know it's crazy, but I mean, it's real. I mean, that's there's no doubt about that. It's real, and that's how it is,
Right. So let me ask you this. Do you think, in the paranormal field, we have I forget the exact term for it, but it's basically a theory that all of these strange things, the unified field theory, I believe is what they call it. I may be wrong there, but that all of these weird things are kind of connected in their own way, or they may have one source, and that certain people, be it alien abductees or repeated people who have had experiences with Sasquatch or with these dogmen like you described repeatedly, that theory says that maybe they are tapping into something, or maybe they can see something better than the rest of us or better than most of us. Do you think that maybe this dogman encounter and this UFO encounter years later are connected? Do you think maybe you have something, that allows you to see these things? What do you think on that front?
Honestly, I don't know. I mean, I don't know that I'm special. I mean, if I'm special, then the guy that was riding me during the UFO was special. Also, the guy that was with me peeing is special, too. So are we all special? I don't know. I think I was the right place at the right time, to be honest.
Absolutely. Very, very interesting.
I mean, the dogman story, that's the first time I heard it. I know Ben mentioned to me that, you kind of spoke to him about it through Messenger. But that's interesting, and and I agree with Ben. What he said earlier that Kentucky does seem to have a dogman problem, and you're not the first person that has told us stories off the record about similar things that happen here in Russell County.
Yeah, well, I'd like to tell you something. Like I listen to YouTube a lot, here lately, and I forget what channel it was on, but I heard of stories of true dogman encounters, werewolf encounters, and as soon as they said it looked like a lightning bug, like a firefly, that same color of eye, like a greenish yellow, and about the same intensity of glow in the eyeball. I mean, that's exactly what I saw, and I knew as soon as they said that, they were telling the truth, you know, because that's exactly what I saw. And I knew that either they were telling the truth or they were mocking, copying somebody that did actually see what I saw, because you can't just make that up, you know.
If I'm not mistaken, that video is on Kentucky Encounters, because I believe I have watched that particular video.
Oh, yeah. I'm not sure. I know that I saw or been listening to other people, you know, that told the stories online, and I've been listening to them, and, you know, as soon as I hear that, or a yellowish, greenish, you know, eyeball, I mean, glowing about the same intensity as lightning bugs when they're lit up, I mean, that's exactly the color and intensity of the eyeball of the werewolf type creature. And no, it was not a lightning bug. We were not drunk. We were not high. We were nothing. It was clear day lightning bug, and not a lightning bug. So anybody that wants to, you know, say, oh, it's a lightning bug. Who lightning bugs? If I say my distance is eyeballs, no, it was not.
Right.
So there.
Well,
I want to shut that down.
Well, you know, in UFO photos and in UFO sightings, me and Stephen talk a lot about, you know, the difference between a drone look and the look of a genuine otherworldly. And with drones, it can be really easy to mistake the two. But with drones, you can definitely tell that there is an LED. It's a different type of light. It's like a light off something else.
I mean, I know what a drone looks like. I don't own one, but I know what it looks like. And I know that if right now I saw one, I'd know the difference between that and the distance versus what I saw. Plus, there's no drones that are about half the size of a football field. Either they shoot up to outer space and then shoot off into space. There's no drone that does that. In 2005, especially.
Absolutely. But, you know, it's that light comparison as well. It's, you know, you can definitely tell the difference between a lightning bug and the eye of something otherworldly. It's almost like it's a different type of light than anything.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the exact same, but the closest that you could possibly get to it without seeing it, you know. But on top of that, I saw two clear eyeballs, like human eyeballs, you know, the pupil and all that.
Right.
But color and intensity of like a lightning bug, almost, real close. But on top of that, no, the rest of the body I also saw, you know, so no, it was not lightning bug. Yeah.
Right. It definitely wasn't like they asked you before on the UFO. It definitely wasn't something like a star. You saw this thing up close and personal.
Yeah, up close and personal. I mean, really up close and personal. You know, the ground was lit up with a UFO. I forgot to add, but yeah.
Right. You're right. Well, let me ask you this. You know, we were talking about that unified field theory. Have you had any other strange encounters like these things throughout your life?
Well, at risk of looking like I'm completely crazy, yes, I have.
Hey.
Okay. Well, this is the best one yet. Okay, 2006, May 06, left the Sheriff's Department of Russell County, went to Liberty PD for 2007, 2008, early 09. But in 08, I'm sorry, I'm getting way ahead of myself. In the year 2000, turning 2001, I was about to be hired as a sheriff's deputy. I knew I was. And before that, me and my best friend in school, not Jacob that I saw the werewolf with, but another guy who I was good friends with, we were in Casey County on Red Hill Road. Whoever knows where that's at. And it was more his area, not mine. But it's around 2 a.m. and get ready to laugh, people. We might get ready to cry here soon as I can back it up with a book. But either way, we saw, and I do not believe in ghosts. I mean, I think it's ridiculous. Ghosts are ridiculous, you know, I thought. But here's the story. Down my lane, not in the center of the road, but in my lane, like if I didn't stop, I would have hit her in the center of the hood of my car. Well, we just out driving around trying to keep ourselves awake at night to get used to third shift. We had to work at the Fruit of the Loom at the time, trying to get used to third shift, so I was driving around. So anyway, on Red Hill Road, one straight stretch, we saw this woman walking down the road. Her back was to us in the center of our lane, walking away from us. And we get close, about maybe 20 yards from her, 20 foot from her, something like that. And I said, both of us looked at each other at the same time and said, holy F, she ain't got no effing legs. And she did not have legs. She, from right where her knees were, from that down, nothing. No legs whatsoever. Sure. And you could see her. She was translucent, and you could actually see her, through her. Not too well, but you could. And
right.
Anyway, I believe at the time, I had a mag light and had a Smith & Wesson 9mm at the time. And my friend Derek, he grabbed the 9mm. I said, Eric, don't shoot her. I said, don't pull the trigger. I was freaking out too. I mean, we were scared to death, but it's kind of mean. I mean, it's kind of funny at the same time because I drove around this woman, whatever she is.
Right.
I got well, his head was in my lap, and he had the gun to her head. As I was driving around her, in the center of the lane in the road there, and anyway, I said, don't shoot her, Rick, don't shoot her. I said, whatever. I said, you're going to hurt her anyway. And, I mean, we was both freaking out, but after that was over, we looked back, she just vanished. She was gone. And if you want to fast forward to when I was on Liberty PD in 2008, I went to the local Shell station. Yeah. And there was this man reading a book of some sort, a ghost story book, and I think it was like Legends of the Cumberland or something like that, and or Ghosts of the Cumberland or something like that.
Yeah, Ghosts Along the Cumberland. Great.
Yeah, it was something like that, and I was like, I'll be damned, that's exactly what I saw, because they was talking about the ghost on, I guess, Red Hill Road or whatever it is, there, and
sure.
Then I got connected to this one man's wife who had saw her same ghost back in the early 70s, I believe, and she's been seen for over 100 years up through that area. And legend has it that on her wedding day, she had been, slashed, killed, stabbed by her sister out of jealousy, because of who she was wanting to marry, and that was explaining these slashes in the dress that we saw, because we did see like a wedding dress or wedding gown with like slash marks to it, no blood, but slash marks, So
sure.
But we saw that, and yeah.
I know Stephen's a big reader of those books. Had you heard about that?
Yeah, actually, I have read that one before. Yeah, William Montel's books. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I look at myself. I'm like, you saw three things that are crazy. Are you crazy or did you see them? And if I hadn't had the witnesses, I think that's crazy. But I know I got the witnesses to each one, and I know I saw them.
Sure. Well, I think there would have been a time in paranormal research and in supernatural research that talking about all of these three things at once, it may have elicited doubt from certain researchers and certain investigators. But
I was afraid to mention it.
But, I think we're reaching a point now with places, I don't know if you've heard about these things, but like places like Skinwalker Ranch and different abductees who are talking about intersections of ghosts and UFOs and creatures. So, to me, it's not that wild to think that maybe you have had encounters with all three of these different things, especially if they are connected in some way.
Yeah, I mean, and the 37th parallel runs through this area, which I didn't know nothing about this, before, but as I started to look into it after, years later, there's a lot of paranormal activity going around. So the 37th parallel runs right through Russell County, so.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I actually used to write a column for the newspaper about these things, and I said once that it splits Jamestown wide open, and it pretty much splits Jamestown wide open. Yeah,
basically, yeah, it did. It does, yeah. So I don't know what to make of it, but I saw what I saw, and that's all I can say. I wouldn't be calling in to feed everybody a bunch of BS or why,
Absolutely. Well, James, we appreciate you calling in. That kind of does it for my question. Stephen, did you have anything that you wanted to add or ask?
I don't have any more questions, but James, I do appreciate you calling in and telling us, your stories and going on the record with us.
You're welcome.
Well, James, again, I appreciate it so much, and I will be in touch with you when the episode comes out. And this has been an awesome conversation. And like me and Stephen were talking about before the show, your experience finding out about that was one of the reasons that we started the show. And talking to you tonight is kind of a full circle moment for us. So thanks for being a part of that, and thanks for talking to us.
That's cool. I mean, anytime you want to call back, you're more than welcome. I'll get a hold of you whenever.
Awesome, man. I would definitely like to have a follow-up conversation eventually. That would be awesome.
All right, appreciate it.
No problem at all. Thanks, James. Have a good night.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. You have been listening to Midnight in Kentucky, in conversation with James Bunch. And geez, what a conversation it was. Where to even start with that call? Something you and I have been looking into for the majority of our time doing the show. And we learned so much about James's UFO experiences and several other experiences he has had throughout his life, it seems like.
Yeah, it was an enjoyable conversation. It was very informative. We got, several more extra details than what was on Third Phase of the Moon. We kind of discussed it in detail and length of kind of the events of that night. And then, and also his story of his encounter with the dogman out there, in Russell Springs, that one night. And, that was a nice little extra to the conversation, I thought.
Absolutely. And that story, the encounter with the dogman or werewolf or however you want to term these creatures, was initially what brought him to our podcast. He initially sent me that story. And it's interesting that he begins with that in a weird kind of synchronistic way, just because there have been so many dogmen encounters, and there's been so much about these dogmen and these werewolves that have happened in Kentucky within the past, since the beginning of 2020. We talked about a lot of them last week on our news episode. We talked about, possibly a killing of someone in Kentucky by one of these things. And yeah, his dogman encounter was very interesting. You know what? Let's start there. What did you make of his dogman encounter as a whole?
I thought it was very similar to other stories that we've heard in the area. Even I think it happened over in Knox County just a few weeks ago with the death of the juvenile, and then also related out into what happened in Monroe County we know where the livestock was mutilated and other things. It all ties into this cryptid that, you know, is pretty much labeled a dogman, wolfman. And, you know, it's obvious there's a lot of sightings, you know, in the area. Even Philip Mantle, I think in his book, you know, is discussed. And, you know, it seems like there is multiple sightings as James had. And, you know, and he gave the location of his, you know, where it happened, you know, there in Russell Springs and in the area. And, you know, that was definitely interesting. And it kind of makes you wonder if there hasn't been more people that have seen this and never has said anything about it.
Absolutely. And I mean, it definitely wouldn't be without precedent that, you know, as we've talked about in several different aspects of the phenomena, you know, it's a rare thing for people to come forward with their sightings like James did. It makes you wonder how many people have had encounters with these things that have never come forward to talk about them. And it makes you wonder how close those encounters were, you know, and just, you know, how crazy those things would have been that some people have never talked about and never will probably go to their grave not talking about it.
Right, because I think people feel like maybe there's a stigma attached to them, especially in the area that we reside in. And I feel like maybe people also see stuff like that and don't know how to process it, so they kind of stick it in the back of their mind and try to forget it. And, you know, unfortunately, you know, James is not one of those people. You know, I'm glad he went on the record with us with, you know, with his stories. And I'm hoping that it's encouraging for more people to discuss those openly, and maybe we can get more light shine on, you know, what the phenomena is and what's going on with these creatures.
Yeah. And, you know, I think James's description of what he saw was, you know, fell right in line with the descriptions, not only in Kentucky, of several things that people have seen in Kentucky, but like in Michigan, you know, one of the more famous dogman cases of the Beast of Bray Road that Linda Moulton Howe, her name was Linda Godfrey investigated, and Seth Breedlove, of course, did the documentary on. You know, those creatures in that case were described having these glowing eyes and running at these extremely fast speeds, you know, almost otherworldly speeds. And, you know, I thought that was an interesting description that James threw out of this dogman creature, that it had these eyes that glowed, you know, like he described, like fireflies, which, you know, is very much, you know, akin to like UFOs in a way, because the light seen from UFOs is definitely not an LED. It's a much softer light. It's almost a natural light that's behaving in a natural way. So I thought, you know, not only the description of the eyes of the dogman, but the way it moved and the way that it moved so quickly away from them. I thought, you know, all of that was kind of interesting, how it corresponded with other sightings here and other sightings in Michigan, and how it makes these creatures seem like they may not be of this world or of this dimension even.
Right, and the descriptions that he gave us matches up, and as you were saying, to other people's descriptions of these and documented descriptions from multiple witnesses. And, you know, in the movements of the creatures, the way the eyes are, you know, just kind of how they encounter them, it seems like they're all the same type of encounter and description. It's just different locations and different people at different times having them.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. So, you know, let's talk about this UFO. Let's talk about the thing that initially led us to James Bunch in the first place. We learned a decent amount more detail in our interview than he talked about in Third Phase of the Moon, it seems like.
Yeah, we got definitely a lot more information of the sighting, you know, of the experience that he had. And a lot of it was interesting because we were familiar with the area, so he gave us, instead of saying, like on third phase of the moon, he said the county line, he told us it was the Roswell-Pulaski County line because we're familiar with that. And also, he mentioned the location, which is Gosser Ridge area, and then he talked about where it was on the parkway, right there on the line, which if you are familiar with that, if you're driving through there, and you had the both valleys on both sides of you, that's called Meek Hollow, I believe. And, and that's kind of, you can see way off in the distance there, and where you see off in the distance is exactly where James is saying. This is the Gosser Ridge area, down towards the lake, and kind of in the middle of nowhere, where he exactly described it on third phase of the moon back in 2016, I think is when he called in.
Meek Hollow. I really like. I had not heard it called that, but I like that, and that's interesting. And you're right. There are several different sightings in that area and around that area. What I thought was one of the most interesting parts about the things that he mentioned in this interview with us was his missing time experience. He says that he felt like they were out there for 10 minutes, and later when he goes back and looks at the record, they've been out there for almost 40 minutes, 38 minutes to be exact, I think he says.
Right, and this even, ties back into, kind of, when we spoke to Calvin Parker, about, it definitely isn't the amount of missing time that he had, but it's still there's missing time, and that's even to other people we have spoke to on this subject that's had encounters similar to what James had that night, is missing time is always a common factor.
Absolutely. And, he describes the entire scene. He drives upon it. There's this huge craft. It's radiating down light, so much so that the light's hitting the ground. There's no insect sounds. There's no wind blowing. It's completely silent. And he says he loses track of time, that it's almost like a dream standing there looking at it. And in that dream state, he loses 40 minutes. I mean, he loses, a quite substantial amount of time. And, we talked a little bit about this with James, but what do you think may have happened in that 40 minutes? Do you think, I'm sure, we have the same idea on it.
I believe we do. One thing's obvious is that the gentleman in the house that, he was talking to that was from Arizona, that was staying in a vacation home down there in that area. Obviously, he was abducted, and we've believed that since, we listened to the Third Phase of the Moon episode. It's interesting that James and his partner that night both, also experienced the missing time. Now, not saying they were taken aboard the craft, but maybe this phenomenon has the ability to freeze, the mind or whatever of people when they miss that amount of time while this is going on.
Sure. And I mean, it definitely seems like you said, it compares heavily to the Calvin Parker thing, where there was that substantial time loss, and almost every UFO experience or experience like this, it seems like there's that substantial amount of time loss. So, of course, James also has had an encounter with what he describes, or what one would describe as a ghost-like being in Casey County. What did you make of that?
And that kind of goes back to other sightings in that area where people have seen similar things in Casey County. There's a lot of documented sightings. Even I think we even touched on William Linwood Montel, discussing these type of sightings in that area. And, again, it corresponds to, other documented accounts of other witnesses throughout the years. And, and a lot of people may be thinking, well, James has, told 3 experiences here, but it seems like, people who experience these things tend to experience a lot of them. And that's even, John Keel discusses that in a lot of his writings, that this phenomenon in our world or our dimension or our universe seems to come upon the same people, and it's attracted to this, these people for some reason, and they have a lot of these experiences, and maybe they're more in tune to what's around them, the environment, the world, or maybe there's something else that we don't understand as humans that this phenomenon, latches onto.
Absolutely. So after we took this call with James, which we are a week removed from this call, we took the call and we decided to wait a week and, listen to it again, get our feelings, write some things down. So at this point, we're recording. We took this call with James last Sunday. This Sunday is Easter. We are recording this on the evening of Easter. It's around 7:00. But, I think that date is kind of pertinent. And also I started reading a book that I think you gave me for Christmas, actually, called American Cosmic. You've read this, right?
I have, yeah. I actually didn't read it. I listened to the audio book of it when I was on one of my trips for work, on one of my road trips, and listened and finished it up on one solid trip. It was a very interesting book. How far have you got on the book?
I'm about 100 pages in. I've not gotten extremely far, but she's talked about Tyler. She's talked about James. She's talked about the experience that she has when she goes out into the desert with them. And she's kind of described her way of investigating the phenomena as looking at, how the belief in the phenomena itself is structured and the sacred sites of the believers in the phenomena, and how the phenomena is kind of this new religion itself.
Yeah, and I think that's even one of the taglines of the book, isn't it? It's something about religion, or I'm not exactly what the tagline is for it, but it's a very interesting book, and I hope you enjoy it, because there's a lot of good stuff in there, a lot of good research material of how they handle, what they're looking at.
Absolutely. I mean, like it's a university study of UFOs, which, depending on who you talk to, is a good or bad thing. But the author, whose name escapes me right now, but I will include a link in the show notes to the book so you guys can check it out. The author does an excellent job of presenting the entire study in the most scholarly way possible, for what she's studying. But she continues to make note that it's hard to present it in a scholarly way. But that being said, she's a professor, or she studies religions. So she's examining the UFO phenomena in the lens of being a new religion, like you said. And I think you're right. I think the tagline even says something about, this new religion. But one of the most interesting things, and like I was saying, we're recording this on Easter Sunday. I'm reading this book about how the phenomena is as a new religion, so, and one of these parts really stuck out to me in this book, and really made me think about James's encounter and encounters, but specifically his encounter with the UFO. She describes these moments of, and I'm going to pronounce this wrong, so everybody forgive me, but hierophany, which is a Greek word for the manifestation of the sacred. For those familiar with the tarot, there's a tarot card called the Hierophant, which is one who seeks to manifest the sacred. But a hierophany is any type of incident where someone perceives the sacred being manifested to them. The most popular example is the burning bush that's presented to Moses when they're going through the desert, or one could even interpret it, as the dove presented to Noah to land and things. And these are throughout all religions. Anything that is considered a manifestation of the sacred is an event like this. But in this book, in American Cosmic, she is interpreting these UFO events through the lens of religion. So, there are all these events of hierophany in UFO events. Any event where something celestial comes down to Earth is a sacred manifestation. So if we look at James's encounter like that, it becomes that much more interesting. And the way he describes it, this moment of awe where there is no sound and everything is just shimmering in the light of this thing. It sounds like, and not to offend anyone or not to, whatever, but that almost sounds like the burning bush moment with Moses.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was getting ready to say is, it's very similar to the burning bush, and you're right. And, a lot of these events can be, taken into a religious context. I mean, honestly, if you think about, what James told us, what Calvin Parker spoke to us about, and we document those and you go forward, 2,000-3,000 years from now, those could be some type of religious scripture in the future.
Absolutely. And, to compare it even further and another hierophantic, and I made that word up, but another hierophantic event is the wheels that come to Ezekiel. And James's event, Calvin Parker's event, both of those are very, very similar to the wheels that come to Ezekiel in the first chapter of Ezekiel.
Yeah, I've never thought about like that, but yeah, that's correct, and it's very similar. And if you think about what Ezekiel experienced, and even what is documented, in some of the hieroglyphics, in ancient, dwellings, they show fireballs in the sky, and that's how they explain those, and this is how we explain them today in our society, in our way of living. And who knows, as we evolve and continue going, thousands of years in the future, other people who experience these, if they do, that's, they're going to have a different way. And they're going to look back on our explanations and be like, what, that's similar to what we're having right now. And they're going to compare them.
Sure, absolutely. If we don't know somewhat what the phenomenon is at that point, and I don't think that we will. I think we may have a better understanding, but like you and I have discussed many times, I don't think we will ever fully understand it. Do we fully understand God? Can anyone in any religion say that they fully understand God? And, I'm not saying that the phenomenon is God, but I'm saying that people for thousands of years have had experiences like this, and we are no closer today to understanding it than we were, thousands of years ago.
And, I guess the only way we understand it is by documentation of people writing things down thousands of years ago, and then people, of our, era have uncovered these and then put them into formats such as, binded Bibles, binded Qurans, electronic things now, you can get all that online or on your phone as an app. Who's to say 1,000 years from now how knowledge and how things are absorbed, will be taken in. But I'm sure the themes will still be the same, seeing strange things in the sky, having some type of explanation of them, whether it's a sign from God or it's a sign from, some type of phenomenon that's out there that maybe has been uncovered between now and then, but not fully. So, that's all up for interpretation, to the listeners here, and take it for what it's worth, we're just kind of discussing this.
Right. And I may have misspoke. People thousands of years ago may completely have understood this much better than we do. and we may understand it, much better than them in certain ways. It's such a fickle thing, and it's such a weird thing, and it's, truth becomes very subjective when examining this phenomenon in a lot of weird different ways. And I think that's why so many people are driven crazy by the pursuit of these truths, because, these truths are slippery, elusive things that, may be different at different moments.
We have to remember what John Keel said: when you try to, get closer to it, it seems to keep moving. And once you think you have the answer, it completely blows everything, every theory and everything you had and everything you know about this phenomenon away, and you have to start over from scratch. And that's, we've experienced similar things and what we've looked into and been like, well, we thought we were getting close, but now we just got to kind of start over.
Absolutely. Many times over. With this case in particular, a few times. Yeah,
definitely this case. When we started looking into it, we definitely trying to pinpoint the exact location, and by doing that, we possibly have stumbled on to connections to other things that we later started learning about, years down the road. And now, we're kind of looking back onto this case, and it even gives us more questions that hopefully we will discuss in the future that, you and I have discussed off the record, and offline. But, there's definitely something else that we need to look into here and kind of look further in and see who else in the area has had this type of experience.
Absolutely. And, like you said, and I think we may have talked about this a little bit in the intro, but this area that James is talking about is almost the exact same area as Daniel Wilson has had his own sightings, several of those as he was growing up, that we talked about with him.
Right. It's literally the same. If you look out, where if you put yourself where the truck driver was that night on the parkway and looking out your window, and, and I don't know if the truck driver was eastbound or westbound, but really at this point, it probably doesn't matter. But if you look at your window and you see in the distance, that's what all this activity is going on. If you look across, the hollow there, it kind of flattens out, and you can see into Russell County and kind of see where these counties connect, Pulaski and Russell. And really the phenomenon doesn't care about county lines but this is where everybody's seeing these things at, in this little flat area that kind of stretches out for several miles.
Right. Absolutely. And hopefully, this episode, the past episode that we talked with Daniel Wilson, the episode before that where we spoke about James's sighting, hopefully these will elicit you guys, or whoever's listening, to come forward with your own sightings, because we would definitely like to hear them. We've gotten a couple different messages from people that I'm looking forward to speaking with. Things have been kind of crazy lately, so I haven't got to talk to those people yet, but I'm looking forward to digging into those cases. And hopefully in the future we will have maybe not answers, but more questions to what's going on in our backyard, basically.
Yeah, it's literally in our backyard, and it's really cool that, when we started this show, we started talking about kind of, season 1, we started talking about this, things going on globally with this type of phenomenon and different conspiracies and things that went along with these. But little did we know that it would literally kind of pull us into a direction of looking into something that happened right outside our door.
Right, absolutely, and very synchronistic that it happens to be right outside our door, and that, you know, through the show almost, absolutely through the show, we started unraveling different strings of these things, and people started coming to us with different, you know, facets of different sightings of different things, and we started to put these things together.
Yeah, and really since Crypticon last year, it hasn't let up. It has been a constant stream of people coming to us and giving us their stories and sharing with us their experiences.
Absolutely, and we are very, very thankful for anybody who chooses to do that. Like I said, you know, it's been crazy. It's been busy. There's a pandemic on. Stuff's been wild, and I know that I haven't been able to respond. Both of us haven't been able to respond to different people that have witnessed these things, that have got to us through email and messaging. But we absolutely will. You know, if it's pressing, if it's timely, mention that in the email, mention that in the message. But we absolutely would love to talk to you. You know, we absolutely love people talking to us, and you're right. Since Crypticon, it seems like people have come forward more and more, not only with this case, but with cases around Kentucky and, you know, around the area of Kentucky even.
Yeah, it seems like, you know, we've got people from all over the area, you know, eastern, western Kentucky, northern Kentucky. Seems like, you know, we've got it all over, and we've definitely got enough material for, you know, multiple episodes, you know, down the road that we'll eventually cover. And, you know, we would love to get everybody to share their experience on the show and discuss it with us. It's going to take some time, especially in the current predicament, you know, that the country is in and the world's in at this time. Right.
Well, I think that is going to do it for this episode of Midnight in Kentucky. We again want to thank James Bunch for talking with us. It was a full circle moment for me and Steven, something that we have wanted since pretty much the beginning of starting the show, a milestone that we're going to check off in things that we've done with the show. And we hope to be bringing you more on the story very soon. We've said that every time we've done an episode on any asset of this investigation, and we've always brought you more. So hopefully we'll be bringing more to you shortly.
Yeah, we definitely like to thank James for sharing his story with us. Very grateful that he called in and offered to, you know, kind of put himself out there with us, and very, very thankful for that. Yeah, and I hope everybody's doing well and staying safe and healthy out there, and thank you for listening.
While you guys are quarantined inside, isolated inside, while you guys are, you know, looking for something to do, feel free to check out the Midnight in Kentucky Facebook, the Midnight in Kentucky website. We have just launched the updated blog over there. The stories that were originally printed in the Lake Cumberland Current, we are reprinting those for all of you guys to check out. So, you know, be sure to check those out. Got a lot of different articles on a lot of different Kentucky strangeness, and that's going to keep coming. So trying to get up one of those a week. You guys know how we are with schedules, though. So it may be 2 a week, maybe one every 2 weeks. But check that out. Leave us ratings and reviews if you like what we're doing. Share the podcast with your friends. All of that helps us get out to a wider audience, helps us get sponsors, and helps us do this more. The more we get out, the more time we can invest in doing all of this and presenting these stories to you guys. So, and in addition, if you want more of what we're doing, follow us on social media. We are very active on Facebook,
Twitter,
YouTube,
MidnightKentucky.com,
and be sure to check out the newly launched TeePublic, where you can find all kinds of Midnight in Kentucky merch, at very affordable prices. And on the subject of the YouTube, we are getting back to posting videos. UFOs in Central Kentucky should be up by the time you guys hear this episode. The very first episode of Pushing Pieces should be up by the time you guys hear this episode. And we got some music from Culture Trap, from Unusual Encounters, from John Swanson, and from B. Solace coming to the Ransom Letter Publishing YouTube very, very soon. So, check the YouTube. Stuff's popping off over there. New Midnight Kentucky content, new content from the whole Ransom Letter Publishing family. And be sure to check out the TeePublic Midnight Kentucky merch from all manner of Ransom Letter Publishing stuff's going on. So, thank you guys so much for listening. We absolutely love you guys. Excited to bring you more on this case. Again, I want to thank James Bunch for Midnight in Kentucky. Till the next moon rises, Night Owls. I'm Ben.
I'm Steven.
Good night.
You've been listening to Midnight in Kentucky,
a Ransom Letter Publishing podcast.
Join us on Twitter and Facebook,
or get in contact with your questions, comments, or stories of high strangeness
at midnightinkentuckypodcast@gmail.com.